Hey guys, I want to show you how to handle errors in GraphQL. So here's a little example of what it might look like. So here I have a register form and I've typed a username that is too long. I specified I want a username between 5 and I believe 10 characters long. So when I click register, I get a little pop-up that says username needs to be between 5 and 10 characters long. So we got the little pop-up validation to tell the user, hey, they typed something wrong. So I'm going to go through how I got this set up and how it works. So here's the backend, what it looks like. So the first thing is I have the username here. I'm doing validation. I'm saying I want the length between 5 and 10, and you'll notice what I'm doing here is I'm specifying a message, and that's the same message you saw over there. So username needs to be 5 to 10 characters long. I can change the string to whatever I like. So whenever this, it's not between this length, it's invalid, this message will be sent back to the client, and then they can display that to the user. And now I can do this for multiple things. So you notice how the length here, I'm specifying the args. Args says how long you want it, right? So you can do check other things as well. Any type of validation, you can always specify a message. So SQLize lets you do that, which is really handy. Also, you'll notice it's unique, so I'll show you when we create a username that already exists, we get a unique error. And then in a resolver over here, this is what it looks like, us handling those errors as they come back to us. So here's what the register looks like. Before I show you or explain how the resolver itself works, I want to show you the schema because I changed how this worked. So here's how the registration worked. So it takes a email, right here, an email, a username, a password, and is admin, and it returns, instead of a user, register response. So what is register response? So this is a new thing that I picked up from the creator of GraphQL. I saw him doing this and I really liked it, so I'm using it as well. Where you create this response type, and what it does is you specify whether it went okay, if there's any validation errors, and you pass back the user. So notice errors, I'm passing back an array of errors, and both of these can be null. So either we're passing back errors or we're passing back the user. Otherwise, the other one is null. So error, there's two things, the path and the message. The path says which field is wrong. For example, is the username wrong? Is the password wrong? And the reason to do it like that is and I also like to match this up with my front end so it's easy to use the same name. So I say which field is wrong and why it's wrong. So here the path would be username and the message would be username needs to be 10 characters long. That's what we're going to return as one of the errors, but it's possible there's multiple errors. And then in a resolver here, here's how it's working. So first, of course, we're trying to hash the password. Then we try to create a user. We take the arguments that are passed in, the hash password, and then if everything goes good, everything was validated, we return an OK and we return the user as normal. But if we get an error, a couple things could have happened. Unique could have gone wrong, the validation could have gone wrong, we don't know. So we have to catch this error, and then we need to format the error, figure out what error it is, and format to the way we like it. So I create a function called format errors, which I'll show you guys how that works to handle that. And I'm just passing the error itself and then the models. This is the SQLize models, so I can check what type of error it is. And then I'm saying it was not okay. So let's take a look at this function called format errors. So it's up here, and you'll notice the first thing I do is I check, is the error a validation error? That means one of these things. If it's in this validate block, one of those. Otherwise, it's unique or some other constraint. A foreign key constraint went wrong. We don't know, right? We don't know particularly what went wrong if it's not a validation error, right? Because here we know it wasn't unique. But what we could do is we could actually read the E and see what type of error it is. But for now, we say something went wrong. And we're just passing back that error, an array, and then just brackets, path, name, message, something went wrong. This is just generic. Otherwise, we're taking the map of arrays we get back. So we get a list of arrays, or a list of errors back usually, if it's a validation error, and we're going to map through them, and we're just going to, there's a lot of extra SQLize stuff, So all we're going to do is we only care about the path and the message. So if you've not used Lodash before, the pick method, what that does is if you have an object A, B, and C, and we just got set up these all to 1, doesn't matter. Set that one to 2. If I do pick on this object, so I come over here, dot pick, and then I do A and B, right? What's going to happen is that object is going to be A, B. So it just picks those properties. So C will go away. So the only thing we need to return back to the client is the path and the message. So I'm only picking those 2 properties and returning it. And that's all that's happening on the backend. So basically it's just a try catch. And I'm passing back an error. We can get back here. Yeah, passing back those errors to the user. So we can see this is the data object that we're given. So it's false. In the errors, we see the path, the username as well as wrong, and the username needs to be between 5 and 10 characters long. So let's go ahead and satisfy that. This seems good. Go ahead and register. We can see if we get it right. So OK is true. Now I'll show you if it's, let's see what happens if I just created this, right? It says OK is true, we get a user ID, so everything seemed to work. Let's try and register again. Username must be unique. Cool, so we get that unique error. The validation is off. This error message is coming from Postgres or SQLize. I'm not sure quite who's making it, because you'll notice here it's not in our validate. It's just getting passed to us. It is a validation error, but it's not one of these problems, right? It's not one of our validates. It's just something else. So I'm not sure. We don't know if it's not a validation error. We don't know what it is. But unique, luckily, is a validation error, so we are able to handle that. But I don't know how to customize the message with unique. That's the one thing. So you would have to maybe search in your message, look to see if this is the message or the error type. You may be able to do it that way, but I haven't looked into too much how to do that. For the most part, this is a decent message to the show. Username must be unique or something. That's not great to show to the user, so we probably want to change it, but this works nicely. So I'm going to show you now what it looks like on the client. So this is how I'm handling in the client. So you notice I was doing that little pop-up thingy. There's other ways to show errors on the client than just a pop-up. Like sometimes you want this to turn red or a message to come underneath. So I'll show you how that's happening. So when I click on that register button, and actually let's show you the GraphQL it's getting fired. This is the GraphQL it's getting run. We're registering username, password, and then we're asking for the OK. We want the errors back. We want the path and message for the errors and just the user ID. Okay, so here's the on submit. We're passing in just our state for the variables, and we're awaiting the response. When we get the response, we'll console log it so we can see what it is, and then I'm grabbing the register value. So as we see, this is what the register value looks like. It has errors, OK, and user. So the first thing I check is if it's OK. If we've successfully registered a user, we go into this block. Here you should redirect or something, whatever you want to do. Otherwise, we handle errors. So we don't actually need this bit here where I'm setting the state. I have that there in case you want to actually update the client itself or the UI. Right here I'm calling message.error and just passing the first error. So it's possible you get multiple errors, so there's other ways to do this. So you could loop through the array of errors and then call message.error. This is coming from Ant Design, this message. So not every UI library has a little pop-up that you can just call like this to show a pop-up that shows up. A lot of times you need to store the errors in the state. So that's what I have here. So you could just do pop-ups like this, that's one way. Or the other way, we can comment out that pop-up, is here what I'm doing is I'm taking the errors. So we have a list of errors, right? Path and message. That's the shape of our basically our list. I want to make that into an object. where the path is the key and the message is the value. So the path being username. So like username should be the key, and the value should be needs to be between 5 and 10 or whatever, right? That way it's easy for our render function down here. What we'll do is we can do this.state.errors username, so we check if there's any username errors and we display it here, right? You could do a ternary if you need to, if you want to say username error, right? If you want to display something else and do null. But what I can do is I can actually just do this, because it'll display the error for me underneath this input. And then I'm doing a reduce function here. Let's explain what's going on there. So I'm going through each error and I'm basically just I'm flattening it into this. So we're starting with this. So if you don't know how reduce works, this is my first value. So that's what PV is going to equal. So this iterates through the list. First PV is going to be equal to this, and CV, so this is previous value, this is current value. Current value is going to be equal to the first thing in the list. So PV is going to be equal to that. CV is going to be equal to an object that's path message. So then we're going to be setting PV, which is an object. We're getting the path, which would be like the username. We're setting that as the key and the message as the value. And then we're looping through and continuing to do that. So after that we return it, and PV is equal to this value, and it keeps going. Creates that object for us. So let's see this in action, how we have the errors popping right here. So I'm just going to hit register, and we can see it pops up here. I was trying to make a form with a 0 length username, and it tells us username needs to be between 5 and 10 characters long. So we can set the state, show the errors, keep a little object of it, and have that display in our UI here. Or you could do a pop-up if you want to with AntDesign or any other UI library. But that is kind of how I like to handle errors right now in GraphQL and do validation. So I hope that's helpful. Let me know what you think. If you have any better ways of handling errors in GraphQL, I'd love to know. I'm sure there's much better ways to do it than this, but I just have found this is the best way that I've seen that I really like, and it's very easy to display the errors in forms and different things. So that's it for this video, guys. The code will be up on GitHub if you want to see either the front end or the back end right here, how it all works. I'll have it posted. So thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next video.